Welcome back to the channel, folks. As you can see, we are back in the gun room for another discussion. This time I want to talk about the ATF paying me a visit at my house. So this did not happen recently. So I know this is kind of a clickbaity title because you might assume that it happened just recently since I had a gun channel. But no, this happened over 20 years ago and it had to do with a certain incident, and I'll explain the whole thing, and then we'll go through and explain why the ATF showed up at my door, because they explained to me after they were the agents were convinced that I didn't have anything to do with this whole situation. So picture it. It's October 24th, about 9 o'clock in the evening, 2002. So it's coming on the 22nd anniversary of this whole thing. We're sitting there watching TV at my parents' house. My aunt was in town visiting with her adult children, so there's quite a few people there. We're just having a good time. 9 o'clock at night, there's a knock on the door. Like, nobody ever comes by here at 9 o'clock at night. What is going on? And so we answer the door. There's two guys with badges. We answer the door. They're like, yeah, we're from the ATF. We want to talk to Matt, me. From the ATF, okay. So my father says, and it was October, so it was a little bit chilly. They had light jackets on and stuff like that. They were plain clothes, had the badges around their neck. And he's like, my father's like, hey, you guys mind if he comes out and talks to you? I don't want you in the house unless you have a warrant. And they're like, no, it's cool. So I go out there and speak to him. Now, mind you, this ties into the story. At the time, the news was full of, I don't know if you guys remember, if you're from the area, I'm sure you do. They had just captured the DC snipers, okay? That was the day they had captured them, about 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning or whatever. And then some 15 hours later, there's ATF agents at my house. So I'm like, well, yeah, sure. So I go out there, and we were very respectful. They were very respectful, very professional. Heck, it's been so long, they might even have retired from the ATF by now. But my father even came out and said, it's a little bit chilly. You guys want some coffee or anything? They said, no, we're cool. So they started talking to me. I'm sitting out on my front porch in late October talking to 2 ATF agents. And they said, did you hear about the DC sniper being caught? I said, yeah. As a matter of fact, it's on TV right now. We were just watching it on the news when you guys knocked on the door. They're like, okay, did you ever, and they start asking me questions, and I don't remember the exact sequence, so I'll probably screw it up a little bit, but they started asking me a bunch of questions, and then they explained how they got to my door. So they basically asked me things like, were you in the Army? Yeah. Where were you last stationed? I said, Fort Lewis, Washington. And they said, have you ever, I don't even know if the store's around. Matter of fact, after this video, I might check to see if they're actually still around. There was a place in downtown Tacoma called Bullseye Shooter's Supply. They said, have you ever been to Bullseye Shooter Supply? I said, well, yeah. Have you bought guns there? I said, yes. What did you buy? And I went through and explained, I think at the time, now we're talking, this was 2002, so 22 years ago, but I left, when I got out of the Army, I stayed in Tacoma for 2 years after, so I left. I hadn't been to Washington State since 97. So 1997, it's the middle of the assault weapons ban, the 94 assault weapons ban, and all this other stuff. So I think I bought a Mac 90, if you remember those, the thumbhole stock Chinese AKs. I bought a Mac 90. I bought a Russian laminate blade bayonet SKS from them, and it was like 89 bucks, dude. It was, oh, the prices back then. I bought a Tanfoglio, like a Witness, whatever it was. It's basically a CZ75 copy. I bought a Auto Ordnance GI 1911 from them. I bought some other stuff. So a Taurus. They used to have these things like PT. What was that thing? A 908. It was kind of an original design of theirs. I think it was called a 908 in 9mm. Stuff like that. So I go through the whole thing. I'm telling them. They're like, I bought a CZ52 in 7.62 by 25. I bought a bunch of guns from them. They were a good store. Maybe they still are. And they go through and they go, okay, let's talk about what'd you do with some of those guns? And I said, well, at the time that they were there, I had been shooting USPSA about 4 or 5 years at that point. So there was one point where I wanted a limited gun, and I wanted a para ordnance in 45. So I took a bunch of my guns down to a local pawn shop there, sold them, or traded them in, I don't remember. I think I sold them to get the money, and then bought this para ordnance that had been customized by Clark Custom Guns. So they're like, well, what did you take down there? And I said, I don't even, I took the CZ, the Taurus. I don't think I took the SKS, maybe the Mac 90. It was 5 or 6 guns. And they said, well, let's talk about the Taurus. And I'm like, oh, okay, what did you do with it? I said, I took it to the pawn shop, and that was it. I haven't seen it in years, And then they started asking me questions about, when you were in the Army at Fort Lewis, did you know this guy, that guy? Did you know the DC sniper guy, the Muhammad guy? Because apparently he was stationed there the same time I was stationed there at Fort Lewis. I said, no, I never heard of the guy. I never met the man. I don't know. So they started asking me a bunch of these questions. So when they were finally went through the whole thing, convinced that I didn't have anything to do with the whole DC sniper situation. Because you got to remember, I was living in Fredericksburg. He was shooting people up and down the East Coast, from Maryland, DC, all the way down to Richmond. And he shot one in Fredericksburg right around the corner from our house, probably 5-6 miles around the corner at a Chevron station. There was a Denny's across the street. He was in the parking lot of the Denny's shooting across Route 1, which is a major, Route 1 runs parallel to I-95 over there on the East Coast. He was shooting across Route 1 at somebody in the Chevron station across the street from the Denny's. Now, these were on a corner at a 4-way intersection, and he hit somebody over there. Come to find out later, they had, you guys might all know the story now, but at the time, we had no clue. They had just caught them. And they had cut a hole in the trunk of the car, and that's where they were shooting from, and all this other kind of stuff. But apparently, through the whole investigation, he was firing bullets in the backyard of his house in Washington State when he was stationed there in Fort Lewis, in some kind of tree stump, and they matched those. And I guess the gun was originally purchased at Bullseye Shooter Supply and later stolen, or I'm kind of cloudy on that whole situation. But I know that the rifle originally came from Bullseye Shooter Supply it's either Lakewood or Tacoma or somewhere, right outside Fort Lewis. What was Fort Lewis at the time? I think it's Joint Base McCord, Lewis McCord or something now. It used to be Fort Lewis, and then, which was an Army base, and then it was McCord Air Force Base right next to it. I think they connected the two, and it's Joint Base, whatever. But back then, it was just Fort Lewis. Bullseye Shooter Supply was in, I think, downtown Tacoma, and originally the rifle had come there. So they get through the whole thing. I guess they determined that I had nothing to do with it, and they go, let me tell you how we got to your doorstep and how this happened. So apparently at the time, unbeknownst to me, I was stationed at Fort Lewis the same time this cat was there. Never even laid eyes on him. Then the gun came from Bullseye Shooter Supply, the same place I had bought like 6-7 guns. I don't even remember what it was. I used to shoot there too. They had an indoor range and all that kind of indoor pistol range. I also bought I forgot, it's been a long time ago. It's been, if you count, since I left in 27 years or whatever. I also bought a Ruger P90 or P95, the decocker version, the 45 one from there. Bought a lot of guns from there. Again, a great gun store. So they said, people in the area remember this stuff in the DC, the DMV, the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. That's what they call that whole area. There was one point where a shooting happened and the cops blocked off northbound and southbound 95 because they thought they had him maybe contained in that area because to escape, the obvious route would be hit 95 and go up there. I don't remember if they shut down Route 1, but I remember they said it was 95. They were shutting down 95 and they were searching every car going through, for a while. And they were also writing down serial numbers of people that had legal firearms in their vehicles. And apparently Somebody had purchased the Taurus. The Taurus is what led them to my doorstep. Somebody had purchased the Taurus from the pawn shop that I sold it to. They were searched during this DC sniper thing going on, and they wrote the serial number down. When they checked the serial number, boop, red flag. It was purchased at Bullseye Shooter Supply in Tacoma, Washington. Well, first I guess they checked it and it went back to the pawn shop. So they checked the serial number, bang, says sale went back to the pawn shop, checked the pawn shop or however it was, either they got the Bullseye Shooter Supply. So there was a red flag. Then they went back to the pawn shop, checked that paperwork, that it was sold, who it was sold by, me. So then they checked me out and they were like, boom, he was stationed the same time as this guy. Red flag, he's in the DC area, red flag. There was like 4 or 5 red flags that, you know, if you look from the outside, there'd be a suspicion that I was linked to this whole thing and they had to check it out, and of course. So there was 4 or 5 red flags. The gun came back to the same gun store that the rifle was purchased from or stolen from. I don't remember exactly how at that point. I was in the Army and stationed at the exact same place as the same dude. I'm in the area the time of the shootings, all this kind of stuff. So they came and did their job, did their due diligence, as we like to say it, and determined that I didn't have anything to do with these 2 yahoos. The funny thing is I was sitting there the whole time, and this shows you how this is a perfect example of how people's intentions and their actions are everything. So when I initially answered the door, I had HK USP 45 on me because I carry a gun everywhere. Again, if you guys don't know, I'm wearing basketball shorts. Look, basketball shorts, I have a gun on. I don't care if it's this little shit that you could put in your prison wallet. I have a gun everywhere I go. I carry a gun. I carry a knife. I carry a lighter. I don't even smoke. I carry a multi-tool. I carry a little mini flashlight. I like to have extra stuff, and you don't always use it, but sometimes you need it. That's a side note for EDC stuff. But I carry, so I had a HK USP 45, a compact, maybe it was a full size, on me at the time when I answered the door. When I went out there to talk to him, because it was right, I couldn't be like, hey, let me go put my gun away, you know. So I walked out there, I talked to him, I had it on my hip the whole time. They never knew, there was never an issue. There was no no fighting the cops, none of that, because I didn't do nothing. So I didn't know who these guys were. But it was still a bit disconcerting. But after they explained I explained the whole situation to me and how they ended up on my doorstep, it made sense. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. You know, there was a bunch of loose ties and same locations and same gun stores that we had visited. And so they just needed to tie up all the loose ends, and I didn't have nothing to do with it. But it was still pretty wild. It was pretty freaking wild to have the ATF show up at my door. Will they come back again? Who knows? But there you go. There's a story about how I was loosely tied for a moment to the DC sniper because of, just random coincidences and being in the same place kind of at the same time. And I could see from the outside how they were like, well, we at least need to go check this out to see if there's another conspirator or something, you know. But there it is, guys. Let me know if the ATF, leave a comment down below. Have you ever been interviewed, visited by the ATF or anything like that? Did you have a similar story? Did it go a different way? And another thing is, never invite them in your house unless they have a warrant. They were perfectly capable of conducting their investigation on the porch, on my porch of my house, without coming in. They're like vampires. Once you invite them in, you lose all your power. So don't let any cops in your house unless you have a warrant. Okay, so thanks for watching, guys. We will see you next time.